Life Skills Network is a charity owned by a private consulting firm, helping young people to get to be work wise as they make the transition between education and the workplace. Complementing traditional academic education, we provide e-learning courses and classroom materials that focus on knowing the basics and getting the confidence which arises from it. We remain interested in training the trainers and the teachers, ensuring maximum spread of the information we provide. So if you're a teacher looking to use our material, follow the links below this video. We're looking to work through world-class schools in this symposium to protect the member schools and the families associated with them. Hi, this is Srila from the Life Skills Network. I just wanted to talk to you about something practical today. So many people are talking about strategy and overall ideas and thoughts, but actually we have just come through the most enormous upsurge in scams, and the classes are finding it really hard to go through to careers work. And I wondered whether I could combine the two and give you something to work with. So the world-class schools Beat the Scammers Challenge. What I provide is a lesson plan and great publicity for the school if you finish it, and you can upload it to the school website, which is all very good, and there's an achievement certificate for the class. But the great good thing is it goes straight into the participant CV. Each participating child can quote this challenge, and this is a group project. It's got a wider impact, and that's what internships are seeking. Internship selectors are seeking. I can talk to you about school compliance impacts. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but I looked it up, and what you can say is that I'm an independent consultant with experience of shortlisting and interviewing at all levels, from new graduates to quoted company chief executives, and a video made by me on how to avoid scams, played in class, would qualify as a talk with outside speakers. I am definitely not in the school sector. I understand that there is a publishable achievement requirement. The School Information Regulation 2008 asked the school to publish how the school measures and assesses the impact of the careers program. Well, this challenge will have a really measurable impact. It's how many families, how many classes, how many grandparents. You really can provide a feedback, which actually means something. It's a pity they don't measure us from being practical. Well, there you go. It could be a part of your overall community project. Sharing is good. And I'm going to be talking in very simple terms about thinking, feeling, doing, and it's usually to do with sending them money, and being. How do they approach you? Well, they send you a hook. And here I'm going to talk to you about 4 stories. One of those is my story. I nearly got caught. After all of this, digital literacy and making sure that you're not scammed, I was just that far away from being scammed myself. So let's start with Emmeline, who was very kind and put everything that happened to her on Twitter. Thank you, Emily. So it started like mine. This was my little Royal Mail parcel, £1 9p unpaid fee text. And Emmeline had something very, very similar. So she went on, she clicked, and she got taken to a website. And this came in 2 parts, really. So the first bit, she was taken to a website, and all her banking details were taken, purportedly to take this £1 9p. It should have occurred to many of us, and I'm sure Emmeline was just kicking herself. In fact, she says, please don't lecture me. I have given myself all the lectures I need. But they just shouldn't have money to take £1 9p from you. So then what they do in the second stage is because you put down all your details, they are then able to provide you with all sorts of proof, so-called, that they themselves are the bank. And they have somehow detected, the bank has somehow detected that you've clicked on a bad text, and that the scammers are now threatening to remove all your money. And then very kindly, step by step by step by step by step, her money was moved into their account. Apparently, they were keeping her money safe. No bank fraud department is actually authorized to do anything with opening an account. It's just simple admin. Okay. Then they get to you by curiosity capture. And that's a really horrible way to get to people, but they do. I want to tell you two stories. One is Josh and one is Amy. Obviously the names have been changed, and those are not the real pictures of Amy and whoever she was going out with. Let's start with Josh. Josh had found a lost USB stick, thought that it wasn't his, and realized that it was exactly the same kind as his, and wondered if he wanted to put it into his laptop to see if there were any clues as to whose it might be. Then he thought, well, actually, if it's an empty USB stick, I am just about through with mine. I could do with a new one. And somebody's very carelessly left it around. What happened when he put the USB stick in is it immediately took him to a site which then sent a virus, locked his laptop, and demanded a ransom. So the rule of thumb is never put anything into a piece of hardware owned by you that you don't know where it's coming from. Amy's story is, I think, came away from Facebook. He moved on to email. It took a little while. He said that he was a man who was emigrating to Africa, whose family had emigrated to Africa, and he was Mexican origin. He then fell ill, and then he needed £800 to remit to the hospital because his own funds had really not arrived from Mexico, by which time they had actually decided to get engaged. And as soon as she paid the £800, her boyfriend then became absolutely silent, and the email address was abandoned. And the Facebook she was unfriended, I think, if that's the right expression. And it was really, really hard for Amy to believe that all of this was for the £800. She did notice that he was always in a bit of a hurry. But other than that, she noticed nothing. It sounded really genuine. And all of that feeling of romance, feeling special, came to nothing. If you haven't met them, don't talk to them as if you trust them. And this is my story. Scammers will offer you something like technical assistance, access to a protected document, or a solution for whatever problem you've gone onto the great outside to ask for. I went on the internet checking my broadband speed. Now, that must have been a trigger, that must have been picked up by people who thought, this is the person to target. So within minutes, I got a phone call, and they said that they were from that site, and did I want some help in improving my broadband speed? So I said, yes, please, that would be really helpful. And they said, you'll have to be on your computer, and we'll try and see what speeds you're getting. It was just so plausible it wasn't true. Once you've finished all of this, of course, you'll have to restart your computer so that the programs that we put in then enhance your speed. Alarm bells rang when they said that they wanted me to go onto the C prompt. Now, for those of you who don't know, a C prompt is a page on a computer where it's a blue screen, and the only thing written on that screen is C:\\. Well, I'm not a qualified computer buff, but I can tell you that it was absolutely providential that in the stock exchange I used to sit next to the AI guys, the artificial intelligence people, and you could see them programming the computer to learn for itself. It was machine learning. And they worked straight from the C prompt. And I thought to myself, this looks like computer programming. Right. And they started speaking quite quickly for me to input whatever they wanted me to input into the C prompt. And instead of going on the keyboard, I started to write it down. It wasn't until the third line that they noticed that I hadn't been tapping. And the moment they realized that, they rang off. Now, I then took it to the police, and the police said, this is something that would have taken you to their website, and they would have asked you for a ransom. Well, not very clever. And there, but for the grace of God, I mean, really, I pulled back at the very, very last minute. And then these are the kinds of things that happen in workplaces. I'm going to tell you the story of Sam. Sam was a colleague. It's obviously not his real name. He was in a finance team in a small company. And the way that they made friends with Sam was to say that their father was suffering from exactly the same condition as Sam's father. And they would like to have somebody to talk to, and that they were in another department in another building. And they were new, and they were, very shortly he would come over and meet Sam. Well, Sam was made to feel really, really special, because a lot of this other guy said, oh, the stuff that you're doing with your dad, it just, I haven't done half of those things, and I'm going to try them out. And then he rings back and he says, I have tried some of those out, and actually I've learned a lot from you. Sam feels that this other person trusts him. So when this person then rings up Sam and says, can you make a tiny little change to a payment that goes out to a supplier, because the supplier is threatening to cut off the service if you don't make the correct payment. Sam sort of said at first, but you know what, I haven't even seen a notification of that. What are they doing this for? And this chap said, I can't remember what they said, it was something to do with tax. It was either including the tax or changes have come over into the rates of tax. It came to $3 something. And Sam said, all right, well, I'll put that in. Put that in. Nobody said anything. And it wasn't until 18 months later that it was caught that Sam had been making a payment which was $3 something more to this particular supplier. And the supplier said, we've never received anything other than the ordinary payment. So somebody was lifting this extra $3 whatever. And that was like a free donation from the company to this person. Not intended. Workplace finance teams fall prey to this little approach. Just multiply what he did to Sam by 200, and there you go. That's an entire living wage for the month. The way to take this is to say, notice what you are doing. We can't tell you the number of ways in which people will try to scam you. But your clue as to whether this is a scam is notice what you are doing. And the most important thing is, are you doing something with or for someone that you have never met? Josh, who got curious, put in a USB stick he'd found, feeling of being in luck, thanks to someone he'd never met. Sam, who trusted a so-called colleague, feeling of trust for someone he'd never met. Amy fell in love with someone and gave away £800. Actually, she didn't nearly give away £800. She really did give away £800 because that's what stopped the entire communication. And then there is my story of nearly trusting someone I'd never met with my login details, not to mention putting in code for them. Really do feel an absolute chump. But there you go, that can happen.